only one way to attack this place, and that's through clouds. Now watch your height. I'm watching everything. Okay. How many searchlights would you call them? Too many, I reckon. Boy, good, I've never seen anything like this before. Neither have I. Still the tight. Keep your eyes peeled. Yeah. They're firing at us now. My God. You light your fag on any of those. 1 minute. Keep on weaving. Get there. Arm doors open. Arm doors open. Arms away. Happy. There goes the cookie. And there go the incendiary.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, several times when talking to 460 veterans, they've said to me that one of the reasons they held the squadron in such high esteem was a complete lack of bull. So with no further ado, I would like to welcome you all to today's Anzac Day event, where we will celebrate the achievements of the RAAF 460 squadron and remember their sacrifices. I would like to thank everyone who worked so hard to make this day happen, and I know they are all very proud to be involved and possibly a little nervous. Please do introduce yourselves to each other and any questions you would like to ask, please do. After the relaying here, we will move down to what was the Sergeant's Mess for the tree planting and church service. So with no more further ado, I'll hand over to Andrew Lomax.
is here. My daughter's in Australia and all I'm getting is text messages saying about what's going on and where they are and what they're doing and the awesome flights of the jets going over Dury Bay. I came here as a 16-year-old when I was stationed at RAF Northcotes, and I think some of you actually went over to Northcotes when it was a missile station. I've been asked to look at the heritage side of this place. Inside you will see in the large foyer a series of pictures, information and all sorts to do with RAF Binbrook. You will also see a visitor's book, which I hope some of you will sign. I'd like to now ask Greg Thomas to plant the tree on behalf of his father, Jeff, who is alive and well in Australia, but unfortunately can't be with us today. So it's up to you.
On behalf of my dad, who served at Binbrook 1944 to 1945, I've been in communication with him and he'll be very pleased that I plant this tree on his behalf. So thank you for the invitation.
That's fine. David, to you.
Right, Dana, right.
Dave will finish it off.
There we go.
Well, we got to America and did our training as navigators in the plains of Winnipeg, around Winnipeg and Minnesota. That was another experience. And when that was completed, we were put on a ship for a quick race across the Atlantic. We were crammed in this boat and they relied on speed to get us across so that German submarines wouldn't get us. By the time we reached Britain, were put in. Britain was in the middle of the war. Our first impression getting to Britain was how pale everybody was from the lack of sunshine. That's a remaining impression I had. But it wasn't long before we were marshalled and separated into different groups, depending on what was intended for us. And we went through the process of advanced flying, learning to fly under British conditions from an aerodrome in North Wales at a place called Clanjurog. From there we processed to a place in Staffordshire called Hixton, where the different categories, we trained as navigators, gunners and trained as gunners, etc., etc. We were all brought together at this aerodrome at Hixton and formed into bomber crews. The process consisted, I was approached by a rather dapper-looking fellow with not very big in stature, but very self-confident looking air. And he came up to me and said, "Are you Mackay?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we're forming a bomber crew. I've got a gunner. I've got two gunners and a wireless operator. Would you be interested in joining their crew as navigator?" I said, yes. It was a time of quick decisions. I looked, glanced at him and the others and said, yes, that'll do, I'll join. So he took me over and introduced me to the other members of the crew. One gunner, the mid-upper gunner, was a 30-year-old ex-taxi driver from Sydney, a tough-looking bloke who played in the front line of a rugby team in his spare time. And, well, actually, he was the mid-upper gunner. The rear gunner was a 19-year-old boy from Snowy Johnson from Perth. The wireless operator was another young fellow, about 20, from Sydney, Logger Dowling. The bomb aimer was a Scotsman with another little black moustache from Glasgow, and there was me. There were six of us. The captain said, "Right, well, we don't know each other. To get to know each other, we'll go down to the pub tonight." So before, the taxi driver looked at me and said, "Oh, yeah," he said, "do you drink?" And I said, no, I don't drink. "Do you smoke?" I said, no, I don't actually smoke either." He said, "How do you feel about women?" I said, "Oh, I could see that I wasn't really getting the right answers as far as he was concerned." So I said, "Oh, I like women," which I did. So with that, he sort of accepted. There was no further worry. He said something like, "Oh, we don't want any too good fellas in the crew. They say only the good die young, so we need a bit of rough stuff." So that was the method of forming the crew. And it turned out to be a really good crew, very laid back, very casual, but very loyal to each other in the air. So a good crew spirit developed. Well, we went to the pub, and I thought, "Oh, I'll have a drink." Didn't have anything really against it. So it was only a little pub in Staffordshire called the Barley Mow, and it was too small place to have many people. But in the corner of one corner of the bar, there was an elderly gentleman with a bowler hat, and there was you had to entertain yourself in those days. And as I remember it, apart from chatting to each other and telling stories, the bomb aimer, the Scotch bomb aimer, said he could sing. So we said, "Righto, Jock will give us a song." And so Jock approached the elderly fellow with the bowler hat, said, "Oh, could I borrow your bowler hat to give a song?" And his name was Jasper. We remember it well. And Jasper lent Jock the bowler hat, and Jock got up at the table and sang a song, a particular song called "The Wife," which we all applauded. It wasn't much of a song, but it was a bit of fun. The next time we went for another drink, Jasper was there again with his bowler hat, and Jock again borrowed Jasper's bowler hat to give a song. And we went several more times. Each time Jasper would lend the hat and Jock would give his song about the wife. And until the day we were getting near leaving, we told Jasper, "Well, we won't be borrowing you, Jasper, your hat soon, Jasper, because we're being posted to another trading place, and the next night will be our last." So on the last night, Jasper arrived at the pub with his hat in a brown paper bag and said, "Look, boys," he said, "I've enjoyed your company and the singing." He said, "Would you take the bowler hat as a keepsake?" So the reason I'm telling this story is that that became our sort of talisman, that when we were on our bombing trips, when we could see the lights of the target ahead, the crew would say to the skipper, "Have you got the hat on, Titch?" Who was the pilot's nickname. And Titch would say, "Yes, the hat is now on." So we would sail over the target with the skipper with the bowler hat on his head, and we all felt a bit safer. So it was something. And of course we hung on to the bowler hat, and came back to Australia with the skipper, who has since died. But actually the hat is now in the Australian War Museum in the glass case with a little insignia below it explaining the significance of it. So that's the story of the bowler hat.
When did you arrive at Binbrook?
It would be February 1945.
How many missions did you fly?
11. We flew 11 before the war ended. The last one was at Nuremberg.
When you were flying the missions, were you ever frightened about what you were doing?
Frightened? Not frightened, although first operation, I remember going to the plane saying sort of, going, oh, Nuremberg and back to the rest of the crew, so I was a bit optimistic. But when we were approaching the target, the mid-upper gunners suddenly said, God, look at that ahead, there were a couple of Lancasters. It was a night mission, blew up, burst into flames near us, and I remember the mid-upper gunner, the tough taxi driver, making the remark, and I remember I was entering my log and my hand started shaking a bit, but I wasn't scared, I just couldn't control that for a few moments, control my hand. That's one thing I remember distinctly. But I think we thought we had a feeling of resignation that if it happens, it happens. And the fact we were all together gave a certain amount of confidence, or the fact we were together as a crew. I think we tended to stiffen each other. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a lot of your other squadron members were lost during these missions. How did you feel about that? Did that affect you at all?
Sort of numb, really, I suppose would be the expression. We would, for instance, in the nav, when we were plotting our course in the nav room before we went on the mission, there'd be, the fellows on the other tables that were plotting their courses and that on the map. And then the next night, the fellow that was next to you, there seemed to there'd be someone else there, and you were sort of aware of that. But the main feeling is we can't do much about it. We can't do anything about it. I didn't call them navigators. They not only dropped the bomb, but they did the navigator. So I called them the then when they developed the Lancaster, well, I had to have a bomb owner and an observer and a navigator. They separated.
That's when I split. So they would have been on something before.
Yes.
I don't know what they flew out before the Lancasters out here. They flew Wellingtons out of Binbrook for a while.
Anyhow, we went through OTU. The first half of OTU is ground school and day flying. Then you go on leave for a week, you come back and you do about another 6 weeks and you're doing more ground school and more, but this time night flying. And they send you on little, not real operations, but very close to it. You go as a stooge so that to draw any fighters or position away from the main force of Bomber Command. Anyhow, we passed through 30 OTU. We then got posted up to Neckenfield, their heavy conversion unit on Halifax's. And it was here that we picked up your flight engineer. Now, we were sitting in this room. You don't choose your flight engineer, they allocate him to you. We were sitting there, and I said to my skipper, I said, hey, I bet we get that old bugger over there. And sure enough, we got that old bugger over there. He was old enough to be nearly father to all of us. But he was a smashing flight engineer, and he was a smashing chap. He really, really was a good lad. So as you finished heavy conversion unit, and it wasn't Leconfield, what was I think? It was Lindholm up in Yorkshire. And we went to Glen finishing school, and our skipper asked us if we would like to come to an Australian squadron. And he told us there were advantages. If you went to an Australian squadron, you came to a proper RAF station. There was no nissen huts, no wooden huts, no living in the mud. Like Lumford Magna up the road, we used to call that Lumford in the mud. We came to Binbrook. When we arrived at Binbrook, we were allocated number 13 Airmen's Married Quarters, and that's where we lived for the rest of our time here in Binbrook, as it was called then. Whilst we were at Binbrook, we were a close-knit crew. We was always out together. We looked after each other. And it came that we had to do our first operation. Well, normally, your skipper would go out on a trip with an experienced crew, come back, and then you'd go on your Todd. That didn't happen to us, of course, no. The station commander here was Group Captain Huey Edwards, VC, DSO, DFC and Bar. And he turned around and said, "I'll take Whitmarsh and crew." And we went to Freiburg. And on we got to the bomb line. Don't you think the Americans opened up on us and we suffered friendly fire? And we did get hit. Little bits of shrapnel came into the airplane. And being a group captain and a station commander, he wasn't very impressed with all of this, and he had a lot to say about it. Anyhow, that was our first trip. We then just carried on. We used to walk from our house, number 13 Airmen's Married Quarters, it was known. We used to walk then up to the mess for our breakfast. We'd then go up to the far hangar, the farthest one on the top corner up there. That was B-Flight headquarters. We used to go in there, stand around, sit around. It would be covered with blue smoke in those days. Everybody's smoking. And all of a sudden, back the telephone would ring. Then a voice would call, "Quiet." And lo and behold, the flight commander would turn and say, "Okay, chaps, it's on." That's all you knew. You knew that there were ops on that night. And you would go off into the gunners, would go to the gunnery department, the bomb hammers to the bomb hammers, etc. And go out to your aeroplane, have a look at it. Now our airplane was just parked out there. It was oboe. And you then come back down here to the mess. And by that time, there was a mayfly, what they called a mayfly, up on the board just inside. And if it had your name, skipper's name, and your crew's name, you knew you were on ops that night. And then also there'd be a time for you to come for a crew meal, flying meal before you left, and the time you had to report for the briefing room. And that is what you did. When you got up to the briefing room, after your flying meal from here, you went up to the briefing room. The next thing you went in there, and you'd be sitting down in a row of 7 on each side of the aisle. All of a sudden you'd be called to attention. The station commander, squadron commander, and all the other people would come wandering in. You were told to sit down, and that was it. And then they'd draw the curtain across at the big board at the end of the room, and then you could see where you were going from Binbrook, the route that you were going to, what country you were going to target that night. If it was a long way over, the big moan would go, "Whoa." If it was a short one, everybody would be quite happy. Then you knew where you were going. From that, after being given a briefing by all the various departments, you would then go up to your dressing room, get get dressed into your flying clothing, strip yourself of your pockets. You would have no money, no bits of paper, no bits of cinema tickets, you know, because it was good stuff for the Germans to get hold of. And then you would click your parachute, and they'd take you out by transport to your car, to your aeroplane. When you got out to your aeroplane, your ground staff were out there to meet you. You'd have a little natter with them, talk about various things. Get in your aeroplane eventually, and when you started up, taxi out, and away you went. Now, the trip itself, you just didn't know what was going to happen. We did some trips where you didn't see a thing. It just went, you dropped your bombs, and you came home. But there are other times when you went through, there were searchlights, flak, fighters, you had the lot to contend with. And that was when it used to get a bit, you know, a little bit dangerous, especially when you got flak. You could even smell it bursting, and you could hear ping of little bits of shrapnel from the shell coming into the aeroplane, you know, and you just hoped and prayed the bullet there wasn't big bits. And then of course you flew home. When you got back home here, you landed. Good, I saw your pundit flashing BK for Binbrook. You landed. The call sign for enough was a good one, typical for Australians. It was Leary. You would call up Obo to Leary, you know, permission to land, etc. And you came in to land. Following that, you would go and get yourself undressed, get rid of your flying kit, your parachute and all this kind of stuff. You used to hand it in because it had to be looked after in a proper temperature, you know. And then you would go down to the briefing room, or debriefing, and there, as you walked in the room, the station commander would be there, and the padre, giving you a glass of rum. And that used to be not bad. You felt a lot better after you had a few sips of rum. And then, of course, you were interrogated by the intelligence officers. After that, back down to your mess, and it was bacon, eggs, beans, and all the usual stuff again for a crew meal. And then back to your billet, get your head down. Now that was a typical day on the squadron here.
My name's Betty Welton, and I was born in 1924 and had a good childhood. I went to Lawfield Lane School at Wakefield. First of all I went to the church school, and then I went to Lawfield Lane School and left when I was 14 and got a job straight away, but sadly Mother died just after I'd started work, and she was only 58. But I kept working for about 2 years at in a dress shop, but Dad couldn't manage, so I had to leave the job and stay at home and look after Dad. And that's how I learnt to cook and everything, and housework. And then eventually, after years went by, he got married again. And I said, well, I'm joining the forces. But then he said, I'm not going in the forces, they've got bad names, so I joined the Land Army. And it was the best time of my life. Well, when I was at Binbrook in private lodgings, and we used to hear the Lancasters going over and count them, and it isn't often we heard them coming back. I suppose we'd be asleep. But one night we were in bed and the German planes came over, and it was a row of cottages at Branston at the top of the village, and he went right down the row of houses, machine gun in, and the bullets came through our bedroom ceiling, and they were just showing through I think there was quite a few, because they, and of course the girl I was with, we wanted to keep some of the bullets for souvenirs, but the police wouldn't let us. They had to take them all or whatever, you know. But that was quite frightening.
In 1981, I was a lightning pilot at RAF Binbrook, and the station commander there called me in and said that there was going to be a reunion of this 460 squadron, Royal Australian Air Force, who were based at Binbrook in World War II. They, and as I said, he said to me, "You're going to organise a reunion?" "Yes, sir," I replied, "as you do." And then so it went from there, and I got in touch with the secretary of 460 Association in Sydney, and so we just basically went over exactly what they required in terms of hospitality, etc. So Huey Edwards VC was the station commander at Binbrook in the war and became Governor of Western Australia. 6 weeks before the reunion, he was going to head the party of 460 veterans, and unfortunately he died. So that threw, as you can imagine, all the turmoil of organisation into a bit of a do. And then we had, when they did arrive anyway, what happened was there were about 130 Aussies came, and organised a hotel in Grimsby for them, and they stayed here over a 4-day period, which included an open day at Binbrook in August of '82, when I think, I'm not quite sure of how many people attended from the local area, but there were lots of people travelled a lot of way to see the Lightnings perform, etc. One of the things I managed to organise was for the Lancaster from the Battle of Britain flight was coming over to from Conisbee to Binbrook, and I pushed it up the chain of command, and so at a dinner on the first day they were there, 3 of the veterans from 460 were taken as a surprise after lunch, put inside the CO's car, driven to Conisbee, and actually were passengers and flew from Conisbee back up to Binbrook in the Lancaster, which for them brought obviously very many World War II memories. So that all went off very well, and Bill Moffat, the secretary of 460 Association, and I became great friends through this, and the friendship continued all the in the intervening years up to this day, which unfortunately he died last year, and his wife, surviving wife and daughter, have come across to honour the veterans on Anzac Day this year, and they stayed with us, and we've brought them up today for this reunion.
When you had this reunion, and you had all of these people from Australia coming over, what was their reaction to it?
Oh, yes, I mean, there were obviously lots of memories of Binbrook, the camp, the area, etc. And they were, well, obviously being professional flying people, they were then. Some continued actually, some were current pilots actually for Qantas, the Australian National Airline. And to them, we always used to have joking, because they were pilots of big aircraft, and fighter chaps were different sorts of people, shall we say. And no, they thoroughly enjoyed the whole.
Of the Australians that were based here with the squadron, how many men were lost during the Second World War?
Oh, the 460 squadron itself lost, I don't want to be rude in terms of the exact number, but it's of the order of 1,085 were killed in action. And when you look at some of today's conflicts, then I think that brings it into perspective, where people seem to think you can fight wars with no casualties. And the stories, well, you've obviously heard Joy Moffat's story already, and the stories of those people in this day and age, people thought, well, you can't, no, that sort of thing didn't happen, did it? Yes, there's mines and mines of information from these people that, by the nature of the society of those days, you didn't talk about it. And lots of people survived the war, but it's not until I think some of the people of the veterans on 460s, their families didn't know half of what they did, and it's only when they research and have letters and open letters that survive from that period, they realise what their fathers, brothers or whatever actually did.
What's your reaction been today?
Oh, very good. The commemoration today was excellent. Very well respected and honoured with the people that were there, and obviously the highlight was the Lancaster. Made three passes over the memorial, which yeah, it's very good. I was very lucky at the time, or since the time after '82, I was posted from Binbrook to Coningsby, and for the next few years I was managed to be a pilot on the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, and I flew as co-pilot on the Lancaster for about, I think about a total of about 3 months, and then the rest of the time I was a display pilot for the Hurricane and Spitfire around the air shows, which was an amazing experience, having dreamt of being a pilot when I was a boy. I never dreamt that I was going to fly one.
I stood on the tarmac at Coningsby with my veteran aircrew husband and my family. It was a day to commemorate those airmen who flew on their missions during the war. Coningsby is the home of today's Royal Air Force and also the base for Bomber Command's memorial flight, the City of Lincoln Lancaster bomber together with the Hurricane and Spitfire. These was joined by the only other flying Lancaster that had come all the way over from Canada to tour this country, and the day was made more special as the two Lancs sat side by side on the tarmac. We were gathered there together with many fellow veteran airmen to receive their well-deserved clasps in recognition of their service by Bomber Command. The summer weather had been lovely, and we hoped this would continue for this special day. But the British summer lived up to its reputation, and the heavens opened, so the planned flight of 2 veteran aircraft was unable to take place. They continued to sit side by side on the tarmac. Seating in front of them were the veteran airmen. One by one they were called to receive their clasps. A short synopsis was made of each of the war exploits of each one. Then they were photographed in front of the planes. Those who could stood, others in wheelchairs. We were able to talk to and meet the crews of the 2 Lancs, a very great honour, and it was so moving to see the light in the eyes of those old airmen, some infirm, and that sparkle of adventure was still there. It was a privilege and an honour to share this day with them, a day I remember and treasure for the rest of my life. Rosemary C.W. Dorricott, wife of Flight Lieutenant Leonard William Dorricott, DFM, August the 8th, 2014.
An Airman's Prayer. Almighty and all-present power, short is the prayer I make to thee. I do not ask in battle's hour for any shield to cover me. The vast, unutterable way from which the stars do not depart may not be turned aside to stay the bullet flying to my heart. I ask no help to strike my foe. I see no petty victory here. The enemy I hate, I know. To thee is also dear. But this I pray be at my side when death is dawning through the sky. Almighty God, who also died, teach me the way that I should die.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
I remember VE Day, and that was when I was just turned 12, and we all went to the front on that particular day and met. And on the parade cinema at Skegness front, there was a whole lot of sailors from HMS Royal Arthur, and there was one lone sailor that sang "We'll Meet Again" in the lovely lovely still night, and it was beautiful, and there wasn't a dry eye anywhere, as you can imagine. It was beautiful.
We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. They'll be happy to know that as you